The lights inside the arena dimmed to a single spotlight, and for 3 full seconds, nobody in that building breathed. A janitor from a small provincial town in the Philippines stood alone on a stage built for legends, his hands trembling, his shirt patched at the collar, and the richest, most feared judge in the country sat motionless behind the panel, staring at him as if he had seen a ghost. Nobody in that room knew it yet, but the next 4 minutes would change everything. Before we continue, if you believe in second chances, if you believe that kindness and quiet dignity can silence even the harshest critics, hit that like button, drop a comment below, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Hidden Truth Stories, because stories like this one deserve to be heard by the whole world. His name was Ramon Dela Cruz, and for as long as anyone in his neighborhood could remember, he had been the man who swept the floors of the old community theater in Cavite. He was 46 years old, quiet, and carried himself with the kind of humility that made people forget he existed. Children in the neighborhood called him Kuya Mon, and to them, he was simply the man who fixed broken chairs and hummed old love songs while he worked. What none of them knew was that Ramon had once dreamed of singing on real stages, of filling auditoriums with his voice the way his late father used to before illness took him too soon. Ramon had inherited his father's voice, rich and aching with feeling, but life had other plans. He dropped out of music school at 19 to support his mother and 2 younger sisters after his father passed, and from that day forward, singing became something he did only for himself, alone, late at night, sweeping an empty stage under a single work light. For 27 years, Ramon told himself that dream was over. He watched other people's shows from the wings, arranged flowers for weddings he could never afford to attend as a guest, and quietly buried the version of himself that once believed he was destined for something bigger. His mother had passed 3 years earlier, and his sisters had grown and moved on with their own families, yet Ramon stayed behind, still sweeping the same floors, still humming the same songs, as if waiting for permission he never gave himself. Everything changed on an ordinary Tuesday when a young stagehand named Liza, barely 22 and full of the kind of stubborn hope only the young still carry, heard Ramon singing while mopping near the orchestra pit. She stopped cold. She had worked in that theater for over a year and had never once heard anything like the sound coming from a man in a faded gray uniform. She recorded a shaky 20-second video on her phone without him noticing and posted it that same night with a simple caption, "This man cleans our theater and sings like this." By morning, it had over 2 million views. Producers from a national talent competition tracked Ramon down within days. He refused at first. He told them he wasn't a singer, that singing was something he used to want, not something he still was. But Liza wouldn't let it go. She showed up at his small rented room with the video playing on her phone and told him that people all over the country were crying watching a stranger sweep a floor and sing like his heart was breaking open. She told him his father would have wanted this. That single sentence undid 27 years of quiet surrender, and 3 weeks later, Ramon Dela Cruz stood backstage at the biggest talent show in the country, in a borrowed shirt, waiting to be called. The judge seated at the center of the panel that night was a man the entire industry feared. Built his fortune from nothing, ran 3 record labels, and had a reputation for dismantling hopeful contestants with a single sentence before they even finished their first verse. He had walked out on performances mid-song. He had reduced grown men to tears not through cruelty exactly, but through a brutal, unfiltered honesty that spared no one. Contestants called him the iceberg backstage, because nothing seemed to move him, and everyone assumed the janitor from Cavite would last less than 30 seconds under his gaze. When Ramon walked onto that stage, the audience saw a middle-aged man in ill-fitting clothes, and a ripple of quiet, uncomfortable laughter moved through the crowd. The iceberg didn't laugh. He simply leaned back, arms crossed, and asked why a cleaner thought he belonged on this stage. Ramon's hands shook as he adjusted the microphone. He said softly that he wasn't there to prove he belonged. He was there because his father used to sing this song to him every night before bed, before the sickness took him, and Ramon hadn't sung it out loud, to another living person, in 27 years. Then the music started, and something in that arena shifted. His voice, when it finally opened up, was not the voice of a man who lacked training. It was the voice of a man who had lived every single word he sang, who had carried grief and love and disappointment for nearly 3 decades and poured every ounce of it into that one performance. The song built slowly, the same way sorrow does, until it broke into something powerful enough to lift the entire audience out of their seats. Somewhere around the second chorus, camera operators caught something extraordinary. The iceberg's jaw had tightened, his eyes glassy, his arms slowly uncrossing as if some internal wall had cracked open. By the final note, he was sitting completely still, and when the last word left Ramon's lips, the arena didn't erupt right away. There were nearly 4 full seconds of stunned silence before the sound of 2,000 people rising to their feet nearly shook the building. The iceberg didn't speak immediately. When he finally did, his voice was unsteady in a way no one had ever heard from him before. He told Ramon that he had sat on that panel for 11 years and had convinced himself that nothing could move him anymore, that he had built a career on being unmoved. He said Ramon had just proven him wrong in under 4 minutes. Then, without another word, he reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer, sending gold confetti raining down over a man who, 24 hours earlier, had been mopping a stage floor alone at midnight, believing his dream had died with his father. Ramon dropped to his knees on that stage and covered his face with both hands, and for the first time in nearly 3 decades, he allowed himself to cry in front of other people, not from grief, but from something that finally felt like release. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that it's never too late to be seen, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear that their dream isn't over yet. It genuinely helps this story reach more people who need it. And before we go, I'd love to know, what part of Ramon's story moved you the most? Please share it in the comments below. I read every single one. Ramon Dela Cruz didn't just win a golden buzzer that night. He proved that the years we spend unseen are never wasted, that grief can live quietly beside hope for decades and still, somehow, find its way back to the light.